this video, I'm going to demonstrate sensitivity analysis. So this company provides lawn and gardening services. The price of the service is fixed at a flat rate. Most of the costs are the same, given they have very similar lawns and lots that they service. The owner budgets income by estimating two factors that they believe fluctuate with the economy: the contribution margin associated with each service call and the number of customers who will request lawn service. Looking into the next year, the owner developed the following estimates of their contribution margin per call. Keep in mind that would be price less any variable costs, which includes labor, and the estimated number of service calls. Although they understand it's strictly not true, they assume that the cost of fuel and number of customers are independent. So we have most best scenario would be $30 in contribution margin per call and number of service calls of 10,200. Middle of the road fair, $20 in contribution margin per service call, number of service calls 7,800. An absolutely worst situation is a combination of $12 in contribution margin per service call and 5,500 service calls. That's the scenarios we're going to deal with. In addition to variable costs, the owner estimates that the other costs are $43,000 plus $8 per each service call in excess of $3,000. Annual administrative marketing costs are estimated to be $25,000 plus 15% of the contribution margin. And we accounting and finance professionals love our spreadsheets, and they ask us to use a spreadsheet to create sensitivity analysis for all the possible operating income. So let me go ahead and pivot over here to my spreadsheet, and I've already started to fill out the absolute best situation of contribution margin per service call of $30 and number of service calls of 10,200. Keep in mind, we want every combination of contribution margin per service call and number of service calls to get all those different situations of operating income. So let me start to explain how I got total contribution margin. I simply took my cell in column A of $30 in contribution margin per service call times the number of service calls in column B of 10,200, and that gave me total contribution margin of $306,000. Other costs. I'll admit here, I built a more complicated formula than I needed to because I wanted to accommodate what if things were expected to drop down even less in the future. So we start with $43,000, but we need to add $8 for each call in excess of $3,000. You may say, Lisa, all you needed to do is take my column B, my cell in column B of number of service calls minus 3,000 and multiply it times 8. But I told myself, what if we had number of service calls drop below 3,000? So I took the 43,000 and to it I added 8 times the max. So I'm comparing these two things, max of either 0 or my column B, which happens to be 10,200 here, minus the 3,000. If we drop below 3,000, obviously this would have been a negative number here, and so the max would be 0, and we wouldn't add anything to the 43,000. Again, I built a bit more complicated formula than I needed to. Having said that, that would bring our other costs best situation of $100,600. Marketing and administrative starts with $25,000 plus 0.15 or 15% of our contribution margin. We already calculated our contribution margin in column C, so we'll just multiply it times the cell C7, and that gives us marketing administrative of $70,900. To get our operating profit or loss, we're going to take our contribution margin, which would be our revenue minus our variable cost, and subtract out our other costs of $100,600 and our marketing administrative of $70,900. That gives us absolute best situation operating profit of $134,500. The cool thing about Excel is once we built the formulas, I'm just going to copy them down. We can see our absolute worst situation, best operating profit of $134,500, absolute worst situation, 12 contribution margin, service calls of $5,500 would have created a loss of $31,900.